In answering your question, and I think perhaps one of the most crucial yet difficult things for practitioners in our culture to understand, is that the path of vajrayana doesn't start with original sin. It starts, its ground, is original innocence. The ground, the path, and the fruit. Yeah? Ground means where we start, and the fruit is the realization at the end. In vajrayana and tantric Buddhism, the ground and the fruit have to be the same thing, because you're not creating something new, which could then be lost. If something is created through interdependent circumstances, it can then also fall apart. If enlightenment comes about as a result of particular circumstances, then when those circumstances are lost, enlightenment is lost. Original innocence and bright virtue, these characterize the essence of our own minds. Original innocence and bright virtue. When mind is known, when mind is meditated upon as space, then one becomes fearless. But when one becomes stable in the realization of mind as space, beyond meditation or non-meditation, then one is both fearless and suffused with tremendous tenderheartedness. So, the heart of wisdom begins with your original innocence, not with original sin. What must be understood at the outset of the tantric path is that our own mind, the essential quality of our own mind stream, is enlightenment already, not creating something new. We are uncovering what was always already the case, the true essential nature. We're simply uncovering it. It's as if there was a mirror and some dust has landed on it, and it obscures, occludes the pristine reflective nature. We just have to wipe off the dust, reveal the quality. The great sculptor Rodin, sculptures were so alive and beautiful, had such a dynamic living quality, and he used to say, I don't create anything new from the rock. I simply chip away the excess and reveal what was hidden within the form of the rock to begin with. In the same way, the meditative path is not creating something new. You're not seeking some new excitement, some new state, some new stimulation, but simply uncovering something. It seems as if it was lost, but it was never lost, really. You are uncovering the true essential nature, which is birthless and deathless luminous expanse. So this is the starting point, this reality of original innocence. And this original innocence is inseparable from what I call bright virtue. The original innocence is the fact that mind, your own mind, in its essence, is always already stainless, untouched by suffering, untouched by changes, by time, by death. Mind, in its essence, is stainless, like a vast open sky. Not just Buddha's mind, but your mind. Perhaps from the ground sometimes, I don't know, if you looked up, you notice that you look up at the sky, it seems covered in clouds, completely gray. One sees no blue anywhere. But if you take an airplane up, when I was a little kid, first time I went in an airplane, it was a cloudy day, and the airplane went up and up and up, and finally up above the clouds, and the sky was perfectly blue. Mind's essence is always stainless and pure, untouched. Sometimes the clouds of identification, the clouds of ignorance, the clouds of delusion cover over the sky and we forget. But that doesn't change the actual nature of our mind or the sky. One must take the plane of meditation, of the spiritual path, up over the daily concerns and worries, into the vast open, into the expanse, and discover what it's really like. This airplane which we can take above the clouds of delusion is the path, the methods of the way. So, okay, another example I could give you would be that it's like the moon, which from the view of the ground seems to wax and wane. It seems to become full, seems to disappear over the month. But in truth, from the moon's vantage point, the moon is always full. It's a matter of view, a matter of vantage point. So, in the beginning, you have to encounter a new and different view. This is tremendously difficult, and this is where the problem you're having is coming from, is that you are so ensconced, so stuck and grounded in a particular Protestant viewpoint of original sin that somehow you are broken. In your essence, you are broken. That you are flawed, that you are wrong, that you are damaged. And being stuck in this view causes you to approach the path from a particular vantage point. But this vantage point misunderstands this path, because this path starts with a different view. So in the beginning, you have to encounter a new and different view. You are introduced to that view by the sage, through the lineage, through the teachings. You might feel that you're stuck or broken, that your suffering is indeed an existential fact. Yeah, it seems that way. That it's naturally part of the human condition. That it's naturally part of the human mind, no matter what. But this is just not actually the case. Human beings don't so much have problems, but are problems to themselves. So I'm not saying we should play some schmaltzy game where you pretend that everything's fine and you cover it over with greeting card platitudes, like so much of spirituality these days. Oh, everything's beautiful, it's all Buddha nature. But that's not your actual experience. It's like a man who's starving who says, oh, reading this menu is going to solve all the problems of my hunger, but that's not the case. Yeah? So I'm not saying engage in pretense, but consider the view so that your starting point comes from the correct dimension and the practice takes a particular flavor then. Through the methods of the path, through the transmission cultivated in meditation, one comes to know that mind is formless, deathless, like a vast expanse without any center or circumference. Really, nothing can be said about it because it's a perfect mystery beyond any concepts, beyond attributes, qualities, substance, even beyond categories such as existent or non-existence. It's free from death. It's free from birth. It is freedom itself. Not freedom from or freedom to, but freedom without beginning or end. So, this is what I mean when I'm talking to you about original innocence as the starting point. This innocence, when mind's functioning encounters the depth and expanse of mind's essence, the feeling state that is known in that directly through Gnostic knowing, is a feeling of perfectly innocent, stainless freedom. I'm not saying it's that way because we like it to be, because we project this quality on it. When you give up all projections, when you give up all conditioning, when mind encounters its own unconditioned essence, this is simply the feeling that is there, as it is, in its suchness. When through cultivation of the way, mind comes to know its own essence, then body and feeling and life are known in and as and of freedom. And the reason I then also refer to bright virtue is that this essence, this expanse of freedom, free from any characterization, any quality, any attribute, is not a mere nothingness and not a mere emptiness, but replete, full to exploding with brightness. Thank you. It's a luminous expanse, when mind is freed from fixation, when it's freed from its fixations on collecting concepts, this and that, bits and pieces of knowledge, when instead it inquires and looks deeply and carefully into the essence of its own knowing, when it gives up its fixation with the content of knowledge and instead looks at the context of knowingness itself, then it discovers that this knowingness is a luminous expanse. What in Tibetan, within our Vajrayana tradition, is called rigpa, bright wakefulness. A brightness suffusing the expanse which has the quality of knowingness. The nature of awareness is its capacity for knowingness and love and joy and virtue. The expanse in its luminosity is filled with these attributes. This is not just a philosophy being told you because it's nice and how we would like it to be, but this is, I tell you, from my experience, this is what is discovered when mind becomes perfectly unconditioned. It is not just an aloof witness to all appearances. That expanse which is the knowingness, when even the witness is left behind, even beingness is left behind, then the expanse has as its nature a luminous joy and knowingness. Appearance, the act of appearing, is nothing other than the potency of this luminous nature. A shattering of light like sunlight through a crystal window making patterns on a wall. Patterns, eddies, currents within as the potency of this luminosity. So we have the essence of utter mystery prior even to anything that could be called awareness, and its nature, which is a luminous, bright wakefulness, a knowingness. And then we have the potency, the energy of this luminosity, which is the unceasing, magically manifesting play of all appearances. Appearance, the act of appearing, does not stray from the expanse of purity. When we say wisdom mind and all that's contained within wisdom mind is unborn, appearances don't imply birth, actually. If you look carefully through the tools and methods of the path through meditation, you discover that appearance does not imply birth, it merely implies appearance. Appearances themselves are unborn, complete and whole, in this ground of all phenomena, this essence, this stainless purity. The sky's blueness does not stray from the sky's expanse. The moon's fullness does not stray from the moon's reality. Appearances, the playful potency, the playful energy of luminous expanse never strays from that expanse into some other place from which it has to return. This is not the path of return. This is the path of discovering the actual nature of appearances as they are on the spot in which they appear. And this is not some simply dzogchen, glib, or trite statement. There is a spot. People talk all the time about liberated on the spot. But if you investigate, they have no idea where the spot is, what the spot is. There is a spot upon which appearances arise and upon which appearances are liberated. It is the spot, the point, where the union of empty stainless purity and luminous clarity come together to give birth to unceasing, magically appearing phenomena. So, space itself is inseparable from this potency. The appearances within space, the knowing of those appearances, all this is just this extravagant playfulness, but it has to be recognized. That, again, Vajrayana, the Tibetan term is ropa tsal, ropa meaning playful, tsal, the radiance, the playful radiance of mind's primordial essence, which is utterly pure, kadag, and mind's luminous knowingness, lhundrup, the spontaneity of this luminous knowingness. These two, lhundrup and kadag, spontaneous purity, and its potency, the ropatsal, the playfulness. It is my guru used to say, the extravagant flirtatiousness of luminous clarity and emptiness conjoined that gives birth. Original innocence, the purity, and the bright virtue, the spontaneous luminosity. Original innocence and bright virtue. This is our starting point and our ending point. It's the ground and the goal. They must be the same. This is the unique, profound, essential wisdom of the vajrayana, of the tantric path. Because the state of original purity and spontaneous divine playfulness are uncreated, uncompounded. Because of this, it can't be taken away. It can't be lost. It says in one of the tantric sadhanas, your own mind, how can you say you've lost it? So this original innocence is the ground of the path, and then the path is made up of removing the temporary veils which prevent us from seeing the natural state as it is. The goal of our path is the realization of that original ground. But so saying that it's always already the case doesn't relieve one from the need for following the stages and methods of the path. Because one has become confused about the way things are in their essence and nature and potency right now, one has to remove the confusion. One is not creating a new state, one is not going somewhere else, but one must remove the confusion. If you're standing on the edge, imagine for a moment, you're standing on the edge of the Grand Canyon, and I'm saying, oh, the sunset is so beautiful. And you say, but I can't see it, and I keep saying to you, well, it's just there, it's already present, just look at it. But I don't take the time to bother noticing that you're wearing a blindfold, then my instruction is meaningless. Parroting platitudes is not the point. Understanding that original innocence and bright virtue is the nature of our mind from the beginning gives us tremendous courage and the capacity for great perseverance in the act of engaging the path. It allows us to know that there is no question of whether or not we can succeed. It's a given because it's already our nature. Then we still have to follow the path. Yeah? We still have to. Realization means to make it real in the continuum of your life, in your body, your mind, your feelings, your actions, to incarnate the incarnation of luminous freedom's inherent joy, love, compassion, and equanimity is the meaning, purpose of our lives. To transform what is known ordinarily as body, speech, and mind into the three kayas, the dharmakaya, the expanse of truth, the sambhogakaya, the blissful nature, the nirmanakaya, the recognition of the sublime, intangible, substanceless nature of appearing. It's not enough to parrot words because that doesn't remove the suffering of ordinary deluded existence. Buddha's teaching, Guru Rinpoche's teachings, the teachings of the great tantric masters, right up until this very moment, are in their essence about one thing, and that is the experiential knowing. The knowing of wisdom, bliss, and realization, firsthand, not through the words of someone else. The words are meant to give you the view, and then you're given the methods, the transmissions, the empowerments, the blessings necessary to follow the path. Especially in this culture, though, rooted in the notion of original sin, of being cast out from the garden, we have to consider very carefully the radical origin of the teachings, which is not simply the innocence of our own minds, but of appearance and appearing itself. It is in realizing this innocence, both of the essence of our mind, but also of all appearance, that not just our minds are substanceless, luminous expanse, but that all appearing, this dichotomy between awareness and appearing, awareness and appearance, between mind and body, disappears in the fullness of wisdom realization. This is the redemption. This is the redemption of all appearance. And it pays the being obligation debt that we were given. The debt of our precious human birth. The spiritual longing. Spiritual longing of every human being is to realize this original innocence, this bright virtue, and then to manifest, incarnate it in your life. So, to embody and enworld the beauty of Buddha nature's expanse and luminous clarity. The essence of spiritual reality, the essence of mind, is the expanse of unutterable mystery, perfect purity. The nature of this purity is a luminosity whose radiance is a perfect clarity. And then when through the methods of the path, the confusions that occlude, obscure, veil wisdom realization. And one knows whether there's wisdom realization because there's the complete cessation of suffering and the recognizing and abiding in all states of waking and deep sleep. There's no dreaming any longer. Dreaming happens to confuse sentient beings. When mind is completely pure in the expanse, dreaming ceases. But so in all states of waking, deep sleep, this realization is unchanging. When that's stable in this fashion, then one has to also engage in the obligation of the vow of bodhicitta, the vow of compassion. In the Mahamudra tradition, it said that there are 4 mudras: karma mudra, dharma mudra, mahamudra, samaya mudra. Right? You know these? So, karma mudra is usually thought of as the practice with a consort, the sexual yogas of vajrayana, the yogas related to the third empowerment, special methods of bliss. But karma mudra is, when understood more deeply than some reductionistic softcore porn version of tantra, when understood more deeply, then all experience of union is seen as analogy. Karma mudra is analogy. It's the bliss and pleasure found in spirituality constructed from particular conditions relying on externals, such as a consort, right? Or any other external condition that creates bliss and pleasure, which is then used to meditate in union with emptiness, the wisdom of emptiness. So karma mudra is known as analogy for the possibility of bliss inherent within the subtle body. And so as one matures, one practices the dharma mudra, the methods that allow a deeper union with wisdom bliss that's not reliant on the insecurity of any external whatsoever. Then the realization of wisdom bliss, the luminous single taste of all phenomena, and the abiding of mind within its own nature is called mahamudra. When mind resolves itself in the single taste, the luminous equality nature of all phenomena. It doesn't mean that chocolate and vanilla taste the same, or the pleasure and pain have the same tactile sensory quality, but that the mind which experiences, when we drop from simply fixation on content and drop into context, the context of all experience from which experience arises, like waves on an ocean, and resolve again into it, is a luminous expanse. When mind meditates upon space, it becomes fearless. Then one is fearless in the single taste of all experience. And then perception is known as pure pleasure, whether it's pain or pleasure, are complete and whole in the ground of all phenomena, the luminous expanse. So when this is then all known, then samaya mudra, the last one, the work for the benefit of beings from the standpoint of spiritually realized maturity. It's the payment. You know the Sufi poet Rumi, yeah? Okay, so Rumi once said, God gave us being freely. Let's give it back the same way. This is samaya mudra, that we give back the same way. When for example, then, Prince Siddhartha becomes Shakyamuni Buddha, his first words of enlightenment were, how wondrous, how marvelous, all beings have been Buddha since the beginning. All whose minds have awoken to the marvelous illuminating nature and essence of mind's reality have experienced that shock and wonder. And then they see this inseparable union of original innocence and bright virtue. But Shakyamuni did, then the energy, the potency of that becomes pure compassion. He gets up and walks the length and breadth, the body with no self any longer. Inside of it, fixating narcissistically like Narcissus staring at his reflection in the pond. No longer does wisdom awareness endlessly stare at its own reflection as consciousness in the pond, but simply resolves in its own matrix of birthless and deathless expanse and luminosity. And then the body, devoid of self, is animated by expanse and luminosity. And the body, without any one doing it, walks the length and breadth of India, sharing compassion. This was how Shakyamuni lived his love, incarnated this wisdom. Others may incarnate it in another way, through dance or song, poetry. But in one way or another, sitting silently in a cave, resting with the disposition of bodhicitta, of compassion, this also is a way to incarnate it. Right? So these four, Karma Mudra, Dharma Mudra, Maha Mudra, Samaya Mudra, ground, the analogy, the deeper aspects of the path, the realization of the fruit, and the enactment of realization. Wherever there is realization, there is wisdom bliss. Wherever there is realization, there ceases to be a fixation on human beings as somehow flawed, broken, wrong. Buddhas see only Buddhas. Everyone sees in accord with their own vision. Sentient beings see sentient beings. And then, even if someone ever says they have some this or that realization, everyone's suspicious of it. Because they can only see their own sentient being nature. Buddhas see only Buddhas. Bodhidharma, the great founder of Zen, once said, Buddhas don't enlighten sentient beings. It's not possible. Buddhas can't even see sentient beings. Shakyamuni says to Sariputra, Sariputra, does the world-honored one, the Buddha, have a notion of saving sentient beings, and thereby save sentient beings? And Sariputra answers this in the Prajnaparamita Sutras. Answers, no, O world-honored one. It's precisely because the Buddha has no notion of being a Buddha and no notion of sentient beings and no notion of saving that the Buddha is a Buddha who can save sentient beings. But Buddha only sees Buddhas. This is why Buddha never despairs, never grows tired of the work of the benefit of beings. So you're not being asked to believe an unquestioned dogma. The view that's being described here of original innocence and bright virtue in this series of teachings this week, I'm not saying believe it like an unquestioned dogma or an interesting philosophy. The invitation here is into the methods to forge your body and mind, feelings, into organs of knowledge, into ways of knowing. Rationality is one way of knowing, but there's many other ways of knowing. And when body, mind, and feeling, Tantra, one of the meanings of Tantra is to weave. When these are all woven together, brought into a harmonious synchronicity, then this gives birth to another Gnostic, subtle, direct way of knowing. Then perceiving becomes a tool of spiritual inquiry and then of realization. So the path, it's not easy. It requires intelligence, courage, hard work, and tremendous independence to engage these methods to remove what is causing the distortion of vision. But suffering is terrible hard work also. You know? So the singleness of spiritual reality, this perfect mystery, deep like the ocean, vast like the sky, its openness and utter mystery beyond language's capacity, capability, and original innocence. The essence of everything and everyone is original innocence. So in answering this question you ask, you have to start here. You have to look into the way that your mind fixates on the notion of being inherently broken. And instead, replace this view with the view It's not a dogma. It's a hypothesis. It's a theorem, right? It has the methods of the path are based on a set of axioms, just like geometric axioms, which lead us to a direct way of knowing. So knowing then this original innocence, one also instantly comes to know the radiant, spontaneous brightness. When this is known, then Buddha has been known. And body, life, action become the emblem of this wisdom and love. So, meditate on this. Contemplate it, first intellectually. Cultivate the view through understanding the theory of the how, what, where, when practice works. Contemplate, chew on this, consider the teachings, contemplate the teachings. Then engage meditation. Meditate, take up the methods which cause the teachings to become realized within you. And then engage in the activity, view, meditation, action. But you have to start with view. This is the starting point. The original innocence of your own mind.